Everyone, it's Raj from 3CB. Arsenal's new dynamic defender, Jurrien Timber, injured his right knee in the club's opening match of the Premier League season, and it's now been confirmed that he has an ACL injury and will require surgery. Firstly, how did the injury happen? In the first half, when he was initiating a tackle and went to change direction, you can see that his knee drops into this ACL prototypical position. Foot is outwardly rotated, knee dropping inwards, and then he goes fully into the challenge. Immediately following this, he remained on the ground. Physio came out and did testing on the knee, more on that in a little bit. He was able to return. And then after coming on for the second half, he went to shift his weight to that right leg. And you can see here how there's a ripple in that knee. That's typically when the ligament actually goes, the ACL actually goes, and there's a pivot shift in the knee, and that's typically indicative of a full rupture. Firstly, you might be wondering how that wasn't picked up in the first half and why he was allowed to come back on. So firstly, from my estimation, is that first movement in the first half led to a partial tear. And then when the physio did the testing, that partial tear isn't always that easy to pick up. They usually do something called a Lockman test, which is very, very sensitive, can pick up a full rupture, but not quite as sensitive for partial tears. And then additionally, you have a highly muscular, very strong player like Timber, and that muscularity can help still reinforce the knee and lead to these false negatives. However, that being said, the player would have been tested again when you went back to the locker room for the half, not just hands-on testing, but also movement testing, specifically decelerations, change of direction as well, which stresses the ACL, and then also assessing how Timber was feeling, the pain level, was any inflammation, and it wouldn't just been one person making that decision. It's a collaborative decision between all the medical staff and the player. The key thing when it comes to in-game assessments is that it's all about process. But even if you have a great process, it doesn't make it perfect, and some things are going to fall into that outlier category. And that's what happened here. It's just part of probabilities. It's unfortunate, but it does happen. And Arsenal have a very, very high level medical staff, so it's not incompetence at any means. It's just almost a perfect storm of variables here. And some people have asked me, why not just remove him from the game at 2-0? But 2-0, as you know in football, is still a very precarious situation, as Arsenal found out in the second half. And this is a team that had trouble controlling the leads as well. So the player has gone through all your medical checks. He's feeling good, goes through second half warm up well. There's no indication of a serious injury, right? You're relying on your process there. Another example of a great medical staff and process, which doesn't always lead to a good outcome, is Manchester City's Kevin De Bruyne, who came back from a hamstring injury and within 20 minutes suffered a re-injury. And City's medical staff is arguably the best in the Premier League, arguably the best in the world. But these things happen, like I said, it's a probability game. Sometimes you have those outliers. That just is what it is. So now that it's been confirmed he has an ACL injury and he needs surgery, the return timeline here typically for elite footballers is 7 to 9 months. However, there is research showing for players under 25 that 9-month mark is the true inflection point for risk. However, there's still some variance within that, and also depends on if there's other injuries going on as well at the knee. Let's say Timber does come back closer to 7-8 month mark. The question now becomes, do you want to drop him into games near the end of the season, which tend to be higher intensity because now you have teams competing essentially for a title, for top 4, you're later on into cups, later on into big tournaments. And so do you want to put him in a situation right away? In my head, I already kind of have him chalked off for the rest of the season, so we can really focus on returning for next season as strong as possible. Speaking of that return and getting back to 100%, Firstly, there's a lot of people who always ask me, can you get back to the same level of speed, strength, change of direction, agility after an ACL rupture? And the answer for elite players, at least, is absolutely yes. There's significant research out there showing that baseline metrics for players pre and post ACL with proper rehab, proper strength conditioning, proper ramp up is equal after than it was before. However, there are other variables that will influence a player's level when they do return. For example, match fitness. I'll give you an example. William Saliba, Arsenal center back who was out for about 3 months, second half of last season, has said recently that he's still not back at 100% match fitness. That takes time. Secondly is just the rhythm of the game, which also takes time. And last, but certainly not least, there's increasing evidence showing that kinesiophobia, fear of re-injury and fear of movement, is one of the last things to dissipate after an ACL injury. So when Timber does get back, that doesn't mean that's the end of that return to play process. He's still very much in the middle of it, and it will have to keep building that up. And there's also that risk for knock-on effects because he's gonna miss significant time. Therefore, when you come back, your body still has to readapt to that higher level of intensity, which then comes with certain risk for muscular injuries and other injuries as well. One thing I wouldn't be surprised to see is that kind of like how Chelsea managed Ben Chilwell is maybe if Timber's ready and cleared, give him small amount of minutes at the end of the season just to get his confidence back that he can still do this heading into the summer. That's what Chelsea did with Ben Chilwell, and his overall outcomes have been excellent. There are some key positives here for Timber. Firstly is, I think I mentioned before, his overall fitness level, which by all accounts is extremely high, which always bodes well for recovery. He has, by multiple accounts, and this is one thing that that stresses, incredibly good habits and discipline on and off the pitch. So his commitment to his rehab, ongoing S&C won't be an issue. And then lastly, something we've seen specifically after his injury with some of his posts on Twitter and IG, he has a growth mindset where he's taking this as an opportunity and as a challenge. And I cannot emphasize how important that is during an extended recovery time where a player has their kind of identity taken away from them. You really need to see these things as a challenge, the growth opportunity. Overall, of course, it's a blow for the club, for a player who was looking to be a very, very integral part of the club this season, had adapted so quickly. But hey, that's football. These things happen. Injuries are part of the game. The positive is that he should be ready to go for next season, but be patient. I anticipate the first 2 or 3 months that season to really be more of a ramp up period for him to really get back to that full rhythm, confidence, and flow. And there is still now some time for Arsenal to replace him during this summer window. If I could give Timber any advice, it would just be take it day by day, step by step. And Arsenal's physio and medical staff do a great job of emphasizing that. And it's also why they don't give public timelines on players. I'll keep you updated as we learn more information.